day and welcome back to the channel. Now, as most of you will be, I'm sure, more than aware, 2017 has not long begun, and with it, as rugby fans, you'll probably know two of the biggest things to do with rugby at the start of the year are getting underway. Those two things I'm talking about: one, the Six Nations in the Northern Hemisphere. All you Northerners out there will be absolutely desperate to see the Six Nations get underway, but on the other side of the globe, down here in the Southern Hemisphere, one of our biggest competitions, Super Rugby, and the whole season will be getting underway very, very soon as well. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be having a look at the Six Nations squads that have just not long been released, as well as the squads for the 4 Super Rugby conferences which get underway in the middle to end of February as well. So today we're going to kick things off, since we've got 4 Super Rugby conferences, just one group of teams to go for the Six Nations. We're going to split things up, start things off nice and easy with Super Rugby, and kicking things off with the champions from last year, the New Zealand Conference. 5 teams coming out of there. We're going to have a look at the changes, the key in, the key outs, and of course the key players for those teams heading into a new season. Of course, the Hurricanes, defending champions, will be having a look at their squad and what's in, what's out, all the goings on, transfers, and who we're looking to make an impact in 2017. So without further ado, I'm not going to mess around today. We're going to get into it, have a quick look, and see what we can find. Alrighty, so we're going to get things up and running with the boys from Auckland. That is the Blues, who've made some big moves this year in Super Rugby transfers. Now, most notably, we'll go with the big names, the key in and the key out. That's key players who have joined the Blues and key players who have left the Blues. In my opinion, of course, these pieces will all be my opinion, and as always, I do welcome you all to have your own say, who you think's a big deal about coming or going to these sides, and whatever your team is around the world, we'll be getting to them as well over the next couple of weeks in Super Rugby and Six Nations. But we're kicking off here with the Blues. We've got their squad, but first things you'll be able to see here is who I think is going to be the key additions to the Blues team. Now, key men in, it's pretty easy here. Augustine Pulu and Sonny Bill Williams are the big, huge additions to the Blues, in my opinion. You cannot compete, really, with what those guys can offer and the valued additions that they'll give to this Blues team. Another one I've listed down, I'm only going to name 2 or 3 here that are really going to boost up a team, but I'm going to go with Puliasi Manu from the Chiefs. Now, some may think he's not really much of a key signing as such, but I think his experience at winning and what he'll be able to teach the other front rowers in this Blues team will be invaluable, and that's why I'm putting him in as a key addition to this Blues team. So, along with Augustine Pulu, Sonny Bill Williams, of course, is going to boost that midfield something ridiculous, and is going to make a great impact, I'd imagine, to that side. So you can already tell those two are going to be key signings as well as key players for the team. What they've lost, however, I don't think they've done too badly here, the Blues. One man in particular, I think, is quite a big loss, and that's going to be Tavita Lee, who quite often single-handedly helped to give the Blues backline with his ability to just do things himself, to spark something out of nothing and create the unthinkable brilliance that he is capable of. They will miss him, but they do have plenty of other depth out there, but just not on the level that Tavita Lee is. And I think where he's gone, the Highlanders are going to massively benefit from Tavita Lee joining their team. Now, other key losses for the Blues, the one I'll mention here is Tarinau Latimer. He has gone away to France. He has joined Bayonne, so he's a big loss in their back row. Didn't have the impact I thought he might last season, but still he's a good enough player to, I think, be a decent loss here to the Blues. And the other one, maybe not so much because he took a while to really get adapted, but Mali Sao is back to Japan. He really come into his own at the latter part of the Super Rugby season last year. But I think he's probably the comparatively biggest loss to this Blues team, who I think have definitely recruited a lot better than they have lost. So you look through the rest of their squad here, we'll have on screen their front rowers, especially Farmawina, Hodgman, they've pulled him from the Crusaders, a decent young talent. Puliasi Manu, Sam Prattley, Ofatuanga Fasi, very good front rowers. And you're going through the rest of the team, Patrick Tuipulotu, Kaino, Luatua, Akira Ioane, both of those guys are going to be key. There's a lot of players who are going to be pretty big for this Blues team. We've already mentioned some of their keys to success. We'll talk about Sonny Bill Williams, talking about Augustine Pulu, Kaino. Both of the Ioane brothers are going to be massive. Of course, Gibson, Blake Gibson, who was a pretty big developer in 2016, really did up his game to become almost that bolting All Black with his amazing plays in the back row. And last but not least, Rennie Ranger. If he can stay fit and injury-free, Rennie Ranger is a danger. That's why they call him Ranger Danger. No matter where you put him in the team, Rennie Ranger can be a massive threat for the Blues. And I really like the look of this team. If you're going to pick on anywhere where the Blues may be a bit weak, you'd say in the second row or at fly half. So in the second row, they've got Patrick Tuipulotu, but other than that, it's a bit light. You'd say Josh Goodhue has a chance to really establish himself in Super Rugby. For the fly halves, it's two players who have proven they can be good enough, but consistency and stepping up to that next level is what we need to see from Piers Francis and Ihara West. They have the ability there, but they just need to keep going up to that next level for the Blues, and they could really be a threat for this season. The combination going between Pulu to West or Francis, then through to a Sonny Bill, and then the likes of a Ranger or Milani Nanae, Declan O'Donnell. They've got the ability there, but the Blues often have struggled to really fulfill the capabilities that they offer. Right, so that's enough about the Blues. We're going to quickly and swiftly move on to the next team. It's going to be the Chiefs from the Waikato, and key players in. Amazingly, there's only really one player I'm going to consider to be a key in for the Chiefs, and that's going to be Tim Nanai Williams, who is returning back from Japan, his time with the Rico Black Rams. He is returning back to the Chiefs, where he was a couple of years ago. Other than that, they haven't really changed too much here, the Chiefs. They've picked up a few players from around ITM Cup, or Mitre 10 Cup, I should say it's called now, from Bay of Plenty, Waikato area. They've pulled in a couple of players into their ranks, but they've got a pretty good base of their team. What they've lost, however, is pretty substantial, you'd have to say. Like we just talked about, two of the men that are going to be key additions to the Blues are going to be massive losses for the Chiefs. I'm talking Augustine Pulu and Sonny Bill Williams. And another big one they've lost as well is Seta Tamani Valu. Yes, All Black from 2016. He has departed the shores of the Chiefs as well, and it really does leave them a bit thin. Of course, we also lost Puliasi Manu, the other man we talked about that's joined the Blues, and so you've got to say that have the Chiefs really got the depth in their team? They've gone for some young guys to fill in the role. But you talk about key players at the Chiefs, and you can really list a big pile of names. Damien McKenzie, James Lowe, Aaron Cruden. I mean, it's his last year now of New Zealand rugby, with him signing that big French contract to go overseas. The scrum halves are going to be huge for the Chiefs. Brad Weber and Tawera Karbalo, they are super important, especially with Cruden, who needs to stay injury-free if this Chiefs team are going to even threaten anything this year. Also in the forward pack, last season we saw a huge year for Michael Leach. If he can return to that form again, the Chiefs could well become a title threat. I don't know if they're going to be a title contender just yet. Another one as well, which I'm keen to see and could be a real asset to this Chiefs team, will be Liam Messam. Can he return to those heights of his All Black years or not? He's been a bit up and down with his injuries, so Liam Messam is one to keep an eye on, and he could be a really keen player with a back row that could be good. It might not be good. There's a lot of players who are up and coming, the likes of Sanders, the likes of Boshier, and there Talanau Sal as well. So there's a lot of players that can fill the role, but we don't know if they're quite at that peak Super Rugby level just yet. If we're going to pick on the area for the Chiefs to be weak in, I'd say it was the inexperience of their depth. Like we just talked about at the back row, you get through that first little crusty layer of the Chiefs, the good layer, you know, the top level Super Rugby layer, and you get a few injuries in this Chiefs team, you're either going to expose a fairly weak depth in the side, or you're going to unearth some amazing new talents. Either way, it could be a weakness, it could be amazing strength, but you look through the team and you can see straight away, you look at the front row, Mitchell Graham, Kane Haynes, Nepo Laulala, yeah, they're decent Super Rugby level props, but underneath those, you kind of lose all that experience pretty quickly, and you don't know if you've really got that high level of ability. Same goes for the back row. I mean, you've got the likes of Kane, and you've got the likes of Messam, and you've got the likes of Leach. But under that, you know, that's your big crust. That's your top level player. You do lose out quite a lot. Even Flyhouse, Aaron Cruden, we've talked about him already. If he goes down broken again, it's call up the big man, Stephen Donald, #1. Is he still up to this level? It's a big question mark over all these areas. The centre pairing, sure, you've got Anton Leonard-Brown, sure, you've got Charlie Ngatai, and you've got Tim Nilai-Williams as well. But underneath that, you really got to question it. On the wings, you got James Lowe, but then you got Glenn Fisiahi, you've got Tony Pulu, you've got Sean Stevenson, Chase Tiatia, you've got Sam McNichol. All good players. They've really torn up the Mitre 10 ITM Cup, but they're still unproven at Super Rugby level. It's that risk, reward, it's what New Zealand Rugby does best, and it's going to be at its full extent here for the Chiefs in 2017. Okay, swiftly moving on, we go to our third team of the 5 from New Zealand, and it is the Canterbury Crusaders from Christchurch, representing the Canterbury Tasman region of the country. Now, key men in to this Canterbury team. Have a listen to this. You only need to say one name, and you've probably blown your lights out. Digby Ioane. Where has he been since his amazing time in Australian rugby? He's back after a few years in Japan, playing for the Honda Heat. He's returning to the Crusaders, and it's a big one too. So we look at the key losses. You know exactly why they need a big winger like Digby Ioane, a powerful, fast man like he is. Ring any bells? Someone familiar who the Crusaders have lost? Yep, we'll get to that in a second. Other big ins for the Crusaders. Seta Tamani Valu from the Chiefs. That's pretty big as well. He's a big up-and-comer, and he's going to be a massive asset for the Crusaders if they can get him going up like the Crusaders do so well. They get this young player and they just magically, amazingly have this ability to make them brilliant. Another one who's a key, very key addition to the Crusaders team is Bryn Hall. Now, I didn't even mention him as a big loss for the Blues because on the grand scheme of things I don't think he is, but he is a key gain for the Crusaders because of another player they have lost in the same position. So we've got two really massive transfers here for the Crusaders that are going to be massive for their team as well. We'll cover that in the losses. The last one I think will be a bit of a key asset or a key gain would be Bedwell Curtis coming in from Manawatu, a back rower who has performed very well for seasons now domestically in New Zealand, and I think he could be a big asset back into Super Rugby and just shore up what is a good back row for the Crusaders at the moment. So let's have a look at the losses. Now this is where you understand Andy Ellis. Bang. You got Bryn Hall, a good up-and-coming young talent from the Blues, coming in, bang, replacing the experience and tenacity of Andy Ellis. That's a good move. They needed someone who had Super Rugby experience. Bryn Hall's had a couple of years on him already, and when you look at who he's got there, just Drummond and Fuka are there as well. They don't have the experience that Bryn Hall brings. And that's 3 very good young scrum halves that the Crusaders will have. Should very well do nicely to their depth, and they won't lose anything either if they swap and change those guys around. But Bryn Hall, I think, is a very, very good addition to the Crusaders team for Andy Ellis. The other one we talk about, Digby Ioane, that's because they've lost Nemani Nadolo, the amazing Fijian. It's so sad to see him go, but he's had his time. He's gone off to Montpellier, and I'm sure he's going to tear it up there as well. He's such a great player, but they've brought in. How did they even get Digby Ioane? I mean, what did that conversation go down like is what I want to know. But that is a very, very, very good addition for the Crusaders to bring in Ioane to their team to replace the Nadolo on the side, which I think is a great addition. Other losses, though, that could hurt them. Robbie Fruin, hampered massively by injury. He's gone off to Bath, and from reports I've heard, intermittently has performed pretty well over there, things I've read as well. And another one, a big loss going to Scarlets, is Johnny McNichol. Now, McNichol was that player who was turning into a real journeyman who just continually performs at that high level of Super Rugby week after week after week. That just never really had that X factor to go the next level of an All Black or something to that degree. So I can kind of see why McNichol's gone overseas, but I think he's going to be a huge loss for the Crusaders. So key man for the Cantabs going into this season for mine, Richie Mo'unga. He's going to be massive. He's really shown over the last couple of years just how good he's getting, and I think he's really making those steps up to the next level as well. Mo'unga's going to be massive, and especially with that new inside partner who's got in Bryn Hall, that could be very, very interesting, and it's going to be great for Mo'unga's game to get that adaptability with other players if he's going to take that next step up to the next level. Israel Dag, he's another one, not my favourite player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's got that experience, he's got that ability to win games, to break games open, and with a light-looking back three now with the loss of McNichol and Nadolo, he needs to stand up and he needs to be counted in this Crusaders team. They're going to rely on him very, very heavily. Again, his big punt is going to come into action once again, I'd imagine, and his partnership with the kicking duties, the likes of the Mo'ungas as well, is going to be huge. Another one, Taufua. Now, he's been brilliant the last couple of seasons. Jordan Taufua has become that rock in the back row of the Crusaders, and I expect him to be a big part of that once again. And finally, the only Barrett not to be at the Hurricanes, that is Scott Barrett. Still at the Crusaders, a second row, and we've seen him debut for the All Blacks last year as well, the end of year tour. Performed very, very well, too, I might say. But he's going to be key. His development, I think, is going to be key, not only for the Crusaders, but for New Zealand rugby as a whole. Now, if we're going to pick anywhere for a weakness of this Crusaders team, although I've talked about it being a good transfer of Bryn Hall, I still think scrum half is going to be their weakness, just because Bryn Hall's good, he's experienced that level, but he's not an Andy Ellis, he's not a Tuira Carballo, he's not a TJ Perenara, he's not an Aaron Smith, he's not a Weber, that likes kind of player. They're game winners, they're game breakers, they can change a game. Bryn Hall, not quite at that level yet. He's a good player and they needed his experience, but I think that's still going to be their area of concern in this season's Super Rugby. Okay, so we're moving on to the Highlanders, the southernmost franchise in Super Rugby. They're from way down my ways, almost, not quite that far, but the team from Dunedin under the roof of Forsyth Bar Stadium. How are they going to go this year? Big question. Of course, champions 2 years ago, finalists last year as well. They need to back it up yet again. They need to stay consistent. They can't fall off the pace. Who's the big ins for the Highlanders this year? Well, we've talked about one already, and his name goes by Tavita Lee. Now, he's going to be huge. He joins a big list of very, very good back players, especially the back three. The Highlanders have got decent talent there already, but the area of concern is completely on the other end of this team for me. We'll get to that in just a minute. So Tavita Lee, great signing for him. The second one, if it was in any other team, I probably wouldn't have even written it down, but it's the fact, even to be fair, both of these names that I'm going to say next wouldn't have probably gotten this list in any other side. But it's Guy Miller from the Force and Siati Tokalahi from the Chiefs. Now, both props and both not exceptional signings, but when you look at the props that the Highlanders have lost, Brendan Edmonds to injury for the season, Ross Guttenhays has gone to the Kings, and Josh Honeck is away to Gloucester. Now that is three good Super Rugby props that have done well for the Highlanders over the last couple of seasons as well. They're gone, and they needed something proven to come in and take their place. I think they've done a good job picking up those two. I hope they're going to be good enough. But they still do have Daniel Leonard-Brown. They've got Halo Nuka there as well. But an area of concern for the Highlanders would be that tight five. We'll talk about that a little bit more in just a second. Players who have left that are going to prove to be big losses for the Highlanders. I've only got a couple of names here because I think that they have really kept the squad as a core quite well. So the only real names I'm going to say are Mark Reddish, former Hurricane. He's made his way to Harlequins now. Now he's a big loss because he was a big player in the second row that could do his core role well, and he could really dominate that second row game. He'll win your line out ball. He'll do well in the scrums. He wasn't that big fancy man out in the backs, although he would, have a charge every now and then, do his job. But he did his core skills well, which I think is something they'll miss with a lot of players coming up from domestic rugby below in the Mitre 10 Cup. But the other one they're going to miss, and it's a fan favourite, isn't he? Fumiaki Tanaka. He's gone back to Japan, and it's a shame to see him go. He's a great player. So much energy, so quick, and so electric. But it wasn't just that. It was his input off the field, his passion for the game, and just his personality. I think that'll be missed just as much as his ability on the field for the Highlanders. He was almost like a little mascot for that team. It was great to see him in from Japan before the Sunwolves were actually a thing, and he'll be missed. He will actually be missed. He was a good player, and he'll be probably the biggest loss to this Highlanders team. Another man who was said to be going, but now talk today, I read this morning about Marty Banks, how his move to Treviso has been canned now for some reason, is on a bit of a hold, on a bit of a chop. Who knows what's going to go on there, but talk is now that he's joining back with the Highlanders for the upcoming season, so, you know, keep your eyes peeled on that. Marty Banks isn't a game changer, but it's some decent versatility depth off the bench for the team as well. Key players for the Highlanders that I'm going to talk about here, Smith. That's a name. You only need to say the name. Ben and Aaron, they are game changers by themselves. Other one, Sopawanga. Now, this is a big season. This is a huge season for Lima Sopawanga because Aaron Cruden, we talked about already, he's away over to France. Sopawanga was number 3 on the fly half's, you know, pecking order of the All Blacks, if you will. He needs to stand up here, and he needs to watch out for the likes of Richie Mo'unga, who, like we talked about before, is really stepping up his game over the seasons as well. Who's going to take that empty spot in the All Blacks later on this year? Big year as well. The Lions tour coming up. I mean, someone has to step up. Barrett, sure, he's the incumbent now, and he's got really no competition that close to him before Super Rugby kicks off. So Sopawanga, he needs a huge season of Super Rugby and needs to consolidate that number 2 spot in the pecking order and really go forward from there and become a permanent deal in the All Blacks. Other ones I'm going to talk about for the Highlanders keys are the back 3. Now, we've already talked about Ben Smith, but it's the others there as well. It's the likes of Tavita Lee, who we've already talked about, Patrick Osborne, Waisaki Naholo, also the ones in the centres, likes of Fikatoa, Faddis, Rob Thompson, who had a really good start to rugby last season, but faded away with injuries as well. Even Jason Emery, who really hasn't fulfilled his potential as a Super Rugby player at all, unfortunately. Still young though, still time for him, but that's going to be the key though. Those back 3 positions for the Highlanders, huge depth now of Osborne, Naholo and Lee, along with Ben Smith. That's got to be, again, Sopawanga with those guys, those crossfield kicks, those silly little chips over the back of the head, you know, those set piece plays. Tony Brown, the architect, needs to keep up with that stuff going into 2017. And finally on the Highlanders, a weakness of theirs, I'll definitely say, like I said earlier, the tight 5, definitely the loss of some seasoned props, and in the second row, losing that workhorse that Mark Reddish was. They've still got the likes of Alex Amy, I think is a very good player as well, but just there seems to be that consensus around that pack from the Highlanders. They just don't get the credit they deserve, and they just don't look as good on paper as they perform on field. So I'm ready to be proven wrong about that once again. Bring it on, Highlanders. And last but not least, it is the carryover champions, the defending champions, the Hurricanes, from the capital as well. Where else would you want your best team to be from? Now, the Hurricanes, can they do it? Can they defend? That's the big question of the day from the capital. Who is in, who is out from this team? Well, big ins for me is Sam Lousy. Now, the former Warriors player in the NRL, then moved over to the Waratahs. He wasn't too impactful there. Strong runner, very strong man. He's moving back home to the Hurricanes, and I expect him to do big things here in the capital as well. The other one for me, Geordie Barrett, brother of Beauden Barrett, and those two together have to be a massive key. Geordie Barrett, generally a centre, playing in 12, from we've seen under 20s, fly half centre, kind of roaming player. He's pretty adept, he's pretty skillful, does the goal kicking as well. He's very much like a nearly carbon copy of Beauden Barrett in the way he plays as well. So I'm quite keen to see Barrett and Barrett 12 and 10. That would be interesting, wouldn't it? But he's a big addition. There was a real debacle about who he was going to sign for earlier last year when he was tossing up between Canterbury, who he played his domestic rugby for, and then moving into Super Rugby. The Crusaders wanted him, obviously the Hurricanes wanted him. It was Big Brother. Was it Big Brother or Little Brother? I'm not quite sure the order of those guys, but it must be Big Brother Beauden said, come to the Hurricanes, mate. You need to come with a family, as that's me. And he did what he said, and he's come up from Canterbury. Good signing for the Hurricanes as well. Key losses, Victor Vito. Now he's off to France, which is a big, big loss. In the backs, James Marshall. He's not a first team blockbuster player, James Marshall, but his versatility was absolutely priceless, and you just can't replace that easily in a team. A player like Marshall who can play pretty much from 10 to 15 without complaining or worrying anyone and still perform at a high level. He's going to be a big loss for them, more than you'll probably notice, especially when injuries start to happen and you need to plug those holes. He was so perfect for that, which is often the downfall for those kinds of players, isn't it? They can't put down a solid spot because they're so good everywhere. The other one is Jason Woodward. Now, Jason Woodward never really fulfilled his potential in New Zealand. Coming back here, wanting to play for the All Blacks, of course, after his time in Australia, it just never really worked out. He was okay at Super Rugby, but didn't really threaten his dream of playing for the All Blacks. Now he's headed off to Bristol, and again, I've been reading things about him over there. He's performing quite well for the Bristol team. So good on him, Woodward. He'll be a big loss again. A player capable of playing on the wings, anywhere in the back three, can also fill in roles further infield as well. So another big loss. A couple of very versatile players for the Hurricanes now gone. Key players for the Hurricanes, of course, you can talk about the obvious ones here, but Nehe Milner-Skudder. Now, who's forgotten that name? He's an outstanding player 2 years ago in the Rugby World Cup. Hugely bad injury for him that's seen him miss all of, or pretty much all of last season in Super Rugby. Now he's back. Apparently he's ready to go when the season kicks off. I am super excited to see Nehe back in the team, and I think he's going to be a big bolter back. Straight back. He's got jobs to do, man. He's got to go back to the All Blacks, and he's got to sort out that Naholo side of things. Savia hasn't been massively at his best over the last 12 months either. Milner-Skudder's going to be a breath of fresh air with all this time with Ben Smith on the wing and putting Dag back at fullback. Sure, it worked last year. It's not ideal, though. I think Nehe is going to be the big breath of fresh air. Just what New Zealand rugby needs. Coming straight back, this young superstar with a silky smooth feet. He's what we need back, and I hope he is a stormer. He's my key for the Hurricanes, definitely. Of course, the two Savias, Julian and Ardie Savia, they're massive. Ardie Savia had a great year last year. Julian probably needs to go back to basics and you know, just reimburse what exactly got him to where he is, and just return back to that form that we've seen. We really need him this year in New Zealand. We need a big year from Julian. The Lions too, we talked about it before. It's huge. We need Julian good. We need Barrett good. We need it all. That's the other key for me, is the two Barretts, Bowden and Geordie. They need to be, you know, those two in a combination could be fantastic. I want to see them play together. That's probably what I want to see most at the moment. Two Savias, two Barretts. Want to get all the others. Want to get the Ioannis in there as well for the Blues in a match where we've got, you know, 3-4 sets of brothers. How cool would that be? Would be amazing. And of course, last but not least, I've put on this list here for the Hurricanes, Loni Uhila. He's still here in the capital. I'm not in the capital, but he's still here at the Hurricanes. And he was brilliant last season, Uhila. He was such a strong runner. He was the rebirth of Tumalolo for the Chiefs a few years ago, where he just barnstormed over for tries every which way you could look. He was an amazing player, and I think I hope that he can build on that and work on his fitness, play a bit longer, make a bit more of an impact, and just build on this Hurricanes team what they are already. Are they good enough to go for the repeats? You know, the squad says yep they are, but Super Rugby is a long season, and injuries tell a massive toll into how this competition works out. Again, with the weakness for the Hurricanes, it's tough to really say otherwise, but the centres just have to be where you look once again. We mentioned it years ago in the absence of Nonu and Smith, who were just, you know, they were there. The All Blacks, they just filled that role. And the Hurricanes, I don't know if they've ever really established replacements for them. They got Peter Aki, Vinsa, So, Nangi Laumape in there as well. You got the Proctors and that, but they're just filling that role, aren't they? You make your tackles. They're not made that huge impact for the Hurricanes, but you got to say they won the competition last year without those big names, so those guys did the job. But I still think if a team is scouting out the Hurricanes, that's where they're going to look. The Hurricanes need to be smart like they were last year, mix those guys around, put, you know, the best horses for courses kind of thing. Pick the team based on your opposition is what they're probably trying to do again like they did last year. If they need pace, if they need power, that's what they've got to do. The Hurricanes definitely good enough, but we'll see what happens over the next few months. It's going to be an amazing season, once again, of Super Rugby. Now, this isn't something I really want to do because Super Rugby season is so long and so influenced by injuries, new players coming in, players leaving and that sort of stuff. Teams can change so much, so it's really hard to base how they'll go from these original squad namings. But I'll give it a stab. I'll put my 1 to 5 for the New Zealand Conference. Who knows where we're going to end up. But in 5th position, the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs have lost quite a lot. They've developed, you know, the young guy, Tamani Valu, to really make an impact and then lost him straight away. They haven't really replaced him that well. Of course, they've lost Sonny Bill and Pulu, who was amazing last year. The losses probably outweigh what they have. A couple of injuries is going to really hurt. I'm going to go for the Blues at number 4. I think the Blues will definitely improve. I think they're going to win a lot more games than they did last year. But I don't think they're going to be good enough because it's going to be a very tight New Zealand conference. Very, very tight. There's very, very good teams in here. All of them are amazing. It's going to be hard to really pick them apart. In number 3, I've got the Highlanders. I think they'll be good enough. They'll probably sneak in for the playoffs later on in the season. But I don't think they're going to be good enough to tabletop. They're going to upset some good teams. They're going to really be that annoying team that you look at them on paper and go, yep, we're going to wipe these guys, and then go out and lose by 20 points. They're going to be good enough to do that, but they're also going to probably slip on a few of their own banana skins and just hiccup when they really need to kick on. So I've got them coming in at 3rd. 2nd, I've got the Crusaders. A lot's going to really adapt on how these new names are going to come into the teams. I'm talking about the Hall. I'm talking about the Digby Ioane, especially the Digby Ioane. How the full weight of the team's going to go on the shoulders of like an Israel Dag and a Richie Moanga. That's going to be massively key to me. If those guys stand up, then the Crusaders could well go a lot better than that. They need to get over this bad start as well. Every year the Crusaders start so poorly, and then later on they just storm forward and they just bang everyone out of the way and charge into the semis and what have you. But they need to get rid of that. They need to fit these guys in as quickly as possible. And of course, number 1, I'm going to do it again. The Hurricanes are my number 1 once again. This team can only be better with the additions that they've got. I mean, you don't need to go past one man, Milner Scudder. He needs to be healthy. I'm talking Savia, I'm talking Player of the Year Barrett, his brother Geordie Barrett, a good forward pack. You can't look past what this Hurricanes team offer. The players they've lost are good, versatile players off the bench. I'm sure they'll unearth some new talent as well. All these teams will bring out some new amazing talent. But you just can't look past what this Hurricanes team has done over the last 2 years, and the fact that they really haven't changed much. You've got to go back with them again. Injuries, of course, could change everything, but we'll see what happens over the next few months. Okay, so that was my look at the Super Rugby teams from New Zealand in the upcoming season. Of course, like I said at the start, it's just my opinion. It's just what I think based on the squads. We haven't even seen them play yet. It's a long way away from getting started, let alone even getting finished. We've got big matches in between and a lot of players who are going to break. So what are your thoughts on the teams? What are your thoughts on where they'll finish? Who do you think is going to be the standout? What new talent do you think is going to come through for future national honours as well? I'd like to hear what you all think about the teams. What's your top 5 as well? Big one for the season. A huge season of rugby lays ahead. Lions tour later in the year as well, so let's get things underway. Big season ahead. I hope you're all looking forward to it, and I hope you all enjoy the videos I've got coming out this year. Thank you for tuning and watching. Let me know your thoughts as always, and I'll see you all next time. Until then, take care.